teachers, welcome to this year's adorable signs. Love it. Show of support. Oh my goodness, that is amazing. You'll have to see this if you're in the back row. This is good. Ah, woo! So I am Melissa Dilworth, and I am the chair of the English department here at Newton North, and I want to welcome you to this year's Sophomore Speech Showcase Celebration. Before we begin, I want to give a round of applause to our awesome musical performers, Zeev Dudnik on piano and Oscar Bohnkamp on bass. So many of you undoubtedly know Reverend King's most famous I Have a Dream speech, where he dared to dream for a better America. Through this famous speech, he inspired others to act rather than wait and cool off, or simply dream about change. However, what you may not know is that King dared to write and deliver many speeches, where he bravely spoke out on a variety of topics arising from his moral conscience. In his 1967 speech, A Time to Break Silence, King used his platform in a passionate protest against the Vietnam War. He saw the interconnectedness between the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church in Montgomery, Alabama, where he began his pastorate, and this moment in time. While some questioned the connection between this war and civil rights, King said those that asked that question didn't really know or understand him. He was not bound to speak on one topic or one moment, but rather felt it a calling to speak out when necessary. For King, the time to speak is always now. In his protest speech, he said, and some of us who have already begun to break the silence of the night have found that the calling to speak is often a vocation of agony. But we must speak. And we must rejoice as well. Perhaps a new spirit is rising among us. If it is, let us trace its movements and pray that our own inner being may be sensitive to its guidance. It is King's willingness to break the silence, particularly when doing so is both hard and terrifying, that we honor today. All of you sophomores know very well, I suspect, what King was talking about when he said that public speaking is a vocation of agony. Public speaking is hard work. And I know you all felt that same agony to some degree throughout your public speaking unit. Yet you all persevered. You all mustered the courage, and you all spoke about something you believed in. As you know by now, no one is born with just the power of public speaking. It takes practice, and it takes courage. Throughout your speech units, you had to dig deep and find the courage to speak up and speak out. You not only worked on presence, articulation, and voice, but you dared to say something that matters. And you compelled all of us to pay attention. We are so proud of all of you. We know that this is a challenging thing to do. We know you are nervous. And we know that you have power within you to speak out on what matters to you and to compel us all to listen. So this is what we are here to celebrate today. We believe your words, we believe your dreams for a better America, and we believe you are the necessary catalyst for positive change. Before we begin the showcase speeches, I want to thank a few people who helped make this day possible. I'd like to thank our incredible sophomore teachers for their instruction, support, feedback, and encouragement. I'd also like to thank this year's celebration panel, Val Young, Will Marinell, Danny Johnson, Beth Cronin, and Sarah Keeble, who helped listened to all the speeches and had the hard task of narrowing it down. We wish truly that everyone could be speaking today because you all deserve to have your voices heard. So thank you all. I'd also like to thank the team behind the scenes who helped make this assembly possible. David Murphy and the Newton North custodians, Adam Brown and Michael Barrington-Haber, Principal Turner, and Vice Principal Amy Winston. Thank you also to the TV studio for filming this year after year and allowing this moment to live on long after these speeches end today. So thank you very much. We'll have that streamed and shared on YouTube. And last but not least, I want to thank my main support team, Assistant Department Chair Danny Johnson, and our awesome administrative assistant, Lauren Newford. Thank you both. I couldn't do this. So one last note about today's speeches. Today's speakers have practiced giving their speeches in front of their classrooms and have had limited practice in the auditorium and certainly have not had this experience giving their speeches in front of all you all. And the lights are bright. We've had to pivot. Thank you for moving around whatever that thing is over there in the middle. And we have very bright lights on everybody today so they can see who you are, and that's terrifying, but also energizing, because we can feel your love. We can feel how much you are supporting everyone up here who is about to give their speeches. We had to pivot. Sorry, that was good. That was like a good moment. I interrupted it. But we have had to pivot. We're all ready to give the speeches and have this showcase about a month ago. We've had to reschedule, and everyone up here has shown resiliency, flexibility, and a willingness to continue despite these obstacles that have come before them. And so you may see some of the speakers today, stumble at a moment. You may see some people use their paper. You may see some people use a podium. You may see me cue somebody. All right, it's been a while, and so we want to give them that same sort of grace that we were giving each other in our classes, and help them feel the love, the support, and give them the courage to get ready to share their speeches. So who is ready to hear this year's Okay, so without further ado, here we go. I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Will Hartzell.
Okay. Hi everybody, my name is Will Hartzog, and the title of my speech is Humor Me. This past summer, I went to sleepaway camp. I had a quaint little group of friends, and we spent all of our time joking around. One late night, we were slinging jokes at each other as we did, and then a girl that none of us really knew that well fell into the crossfire of conversation. My friend declared that she was so fat that she could sink New York City. Everyone erupted into laughter, and as one of the dudes, I felt like I should have too, but my body was so stiff that I could not muster a single chuckle. Humor has been a massive part of my life for as long as I can remember, whether it was eating what I called guacamole when I was younger, currently being in both of Newton North's comedy troupes, or writing my sophomore speech about it. Humor has always been there for me. I love dissecting jokes and thinking about why they're funny, what makes people actually like them. After lots of analysis, I've realized the one morsel of a joke that, for me, sets it apart from the rest. And this is when a joke comes from a place of love. Loving humor can appear in many different forms, whether that's witty self-deprecation, going on a whole riff of jokes with your friends, or simply an incredibly timed shark joke. Yeah, you heard that right, I just said shark. Loving humor is something that can brighten anyone's day, and I feel like it has been replaced by humor that abandons love. Unloving humor can also appear in many different forms, whether that's someone spying someone they don't know and deciding to ruin their day with a hurtful joke, but it's also incredibly present in comedy on television. So many platforms over the years, whether that's YouTube, stand-up, or even SNL, utilize unloving humor in a form called punching down. Punching down in comedy is when someone targets somebody else part of a vulnerable group in society, whether that's being part of a minority group or simply just looking different in any way. A very famous example of this is comedian Dave Chappelle. Chappelle has made a name for himself based on dark humor, stuff that really pushes the envelope, but in reality, the jokes that Chappelle's making punch down, often towards the trans community. Comedian and trans rights activist Dahlia Bell wrote in The Guardian about Chappelle, the marginalization, mockery, dehumanization, and violence that many of us face every single day is only what fuels our despair. The jokes that Chappelle is making are incredibly disrespectful, and that envelope just gets pushed so hard. But the thing is, it is all over television. People are consuming this every single day, and it's bleeding into the humor that they are making themselves. So my advice going forward is this. Be conscious of the comedy that you're consuming, as well as the comedy that you're putting out to the world. Let's stop making jokes that punch down. Let's start making jokes that everyone can muster a few chuckles at, and let's leave that poor envelope alone. Thank you, please clap.
Next up, we have Eve Stern.
Hi there. My name is Eve Stern, and my speech is called I'm So OCD. I was 12, laying down in a New York City hotel room, and it was late, maybe 1 a.m. My dad was snoring loudly. And so very quickly, I thought, God, he'd make less noise if I smothered him. And just as fast as the thought came into my head, a wave of panic ensued. With that one intrusive thought, I had convinced myself I was a crazy maniac. I couldn't stop picturing going to prison and my family hating me forever. I started to get nauseous, but I tried to calm myself down. I'm not a violent person. I cry when I see roadkill, and my father is the best dad I could ask for. This is just a product of my overactive imagination and sleep deprivation, but I couldn't help but think that I was the next Ted Bundy. I started to feel a sense of undying shame and isolation, and I started to think I'd be better off dead, if that's what I can think about. Towards the end of the trip, I decided to tell my parents. I thought they were never going to look at me the same or punish me, but to my surprise, my dad smiled, and my mom looked at me with care. My dad told me he had OCD, and we should look into testing, and only a month later, I was diagnosed. The idea that my weird thoughts had anything to do with OCD seemed impossible, but my knowledge was limited. The loud remark from another when saying, I'm so OCD, in description of needing binders organized or not having stains on their shirt. After all, rainbow organized binders and thinking that you're becoming a serial killer don't really seem comparable. I talked to others in our community with OCD, and they shared similar stories of violent or sexual images that had manifested into OCD and how crazy, evil, and alone they felt. Now, for those who are unfamiliar with the actual obsessive-compulsive disorder, let me tell you what it is. It's an anxiety disorder that starts with an intrusive thought, one that won't leave, causing an obsession to take its place. This obsession is often non-related to the person's morals, which leads to a compulsion, an act meant to relieve the anxiety, but the relief never lasts. So those who have it often repeat the cycle over and over and over again. This affects 2.5 million people in the US. That's small, but not incredibly small. which means either you know someone who has it or they know someone who has it. I urge you to think of my story and many others, and I urge you to think about those who felt or feel extremely alone and even suicidal about a disorder they can't control. People with OCD are 10 times more likely to kill themselves, and the leading factor can be society's overwhelming sense of disgust for otherness. If we were all just a little bit more careful on how we speak, everyone could feel safer. If you're thinking, I've said stuff like, I'm so OCD before, that's okay. All I ask is that you do not continue a pattern of stereotyping and judgment. Let's make the world a better place. Thank you.
Thanks, Eve. Next up, we have William Jans.
Hi, my name is William Jans, and my sophomore speech is called When a Bandage Breaks You. September 22nd, 2022. I cried for the first time in months today. My sister is fading, and a stranger is emerging. The figments that have held on for the past week are drifting, and it seems like all that's left is a tragedy. I've lost her. I wrote the previous statement in my notes app during my sister's first manic episode. In the year that led up to this moment, my sister had been in and out of several programs as a result of her reoccurring psychosis. That first time she came to the hospital, it felt like a glimpse of hope, like a ray of light leading the way out of a sea of darkness. Her release allowed me to wade above the water, letting the warmth of the sun heal me. But as the waves hiccuped and rolled beneath me, a creeping sense of worry rumbled below the surface. After the third visit to the emergency room, I was no longer waiting, but instead treading, with my limbs becoming more and more exhausted by the minute. My hope waned, and soon it'd be drowned by the intensifying ebb and flow of my sister's condition. But how did she get here? How did my sister become a hostage of this symptom for almost a year? It started in middle school, when her undiagnosed anxiety had reached its peak. When my mom had just been diagnosed with cancer, and both of our worlds were spiraling. She was young, scared of the world around her, and searching for a cure to her worries, like we all were. And sadly, this cure became drugs. For a while, they worked. Weed was a refuge from the troubles that were making dents in her real world, troubles that no 13-year-old should have to bear. But throughout the years, weed transformed from a tool into a crutch, and with the weight of her dependency, it eventually snapped. Thus came the spiral of psychosis, mania, and anxiety, the exact thing she sought to avoid. And as extreme as this sounds, my sister's story does not exist within a vacuum. The use of weed among adolescents has become normalized across our school, our city, our state, and our nation as a whole. And in many ways, I understand why. We're all looking for something to shield us from this scary world, and without the proper resources, it can feel like you're braving this storm bare. But as much as weed can provide you with safety, it can also strip that safety away in the blink of an eye, just as it did with my sister. An extremely common phrase I hear associated with weed is that it's non-addictive. This notion is disproven by the existence of marijuana use disorder, which is a condition that affects those who are unable to stop marijuana use even if it's negatively affecting their lives. A CDC study showed that 3 in 10 weed users develop marijuana use disorder, with much higher risk for those who start during adolescence. Additional studies show that weed use during adolescence is associated with increased depression, social anxiety, and of course, psychosis. We are not invincible to the effects of weed, and we cannot continue to bandage our problems with self-medication. If you are currently using weed or are contemplating it in the future, reflect on my sister's story. Recognize that the choices we make today echo into our tomorrows, and the limits we set for ourselves now only become fuzzier with time. Recognize that weed is not a solution to your problems. It's a trigger, and your mind is the target. If you can remember these lessons, you could save yourself from a year's worth of struggle, and you can even save your life. Thank you.
Awesome job, Will. Next up, we have Anya Vishwanath.
Hi, my name is Anya Vishwanath, and the title of my speech is called Rejecting the Tilted Scales. I'm angry. And I'm angry because 4 years ago, I was sitting at the kitchen counter with my 6-year-old cousin. A shiny placemat sat on the marble countertop, and it caught her eye. In bolded letters at the top, it read, "The U.S. Presidents." I had studied it several times over the years, but it was her first time picking it up. After glancing over it a couple of times, she turned to me in confusion and said, "How come there are no girls here?" I'm angry because how do you explain to a kindergartner that without ever choosing or realizing it, she entered a world that never cared about her? I'm angry because we live in a society that's designed for men, and I mean literally designed for men. According to Time, we drive cars that are 71% less safe for women because they're tested on male dummies. We use voice recognition systems that are 70% less likely to understand women because they're tested using male data sets. And don't forget general medications that don't work for women on their periods because women weren't included in the clinical trials. From the point of her birth, a woman exists at a disadvantage. How can we accept a society where the very systems created to protect us are biased against half of the population? We live in a world where men populate the prominent places of power, and where bias tilts the scales, we urgently need more women leading the way. Because when women lead, it's not just about breaking glass ceilings. It's about reshaping the very foundations of power. But this issue doesn't just exist in the higher realms of our society, in the executive offices and boardrooms of high-rise buildings. This issue exists in the very classrooms in our high school. Let me ask you, before you've heard a girl answer a question in class, have you ever noticed her saying, "I feel like," or "I could be wrong, but," or "I think that," and then answer the question flawlessly? Because according to Inside Higher Education, language of male students is likely to be assertive and confident, while language of female students is prone to be hesitant and apologetic. When did we start teaching women that their voices don't matter? While it might be tempting to resign ourselves to disparities woven into our society, the truth is everyone holds a little bit of the power to inflict change. To those who benefit from the patriarchy, when you see a lineup of US presidents, remember, it's not natural for all of them to be men. Imagine how it would feel if they were all women. That uncomfortable feeling of inferiority is the daily reality for me, my little cousin, and all of the women in your life. Question the world around you that has been designed in specific ways to support your needs, like when you drive a car, use Siri, or take medications. To the women, never apologize for taking up space, because your voice is the antidote to the dismissal of our rights and needs. And we all know that guy who casually dismisses women and throws dismissive remarks about them into conversation as if he's flipping coins into a fountain. And whether that guy is your best friend, your acquaintance, or just some person in the hallway, it's always the right time to say something about it. Let's reshape our world by championing the voices of women in leadership, not just as a necessity, but as a demand for a future where equality is no longer negotiable. Let us demand inclusivity in research, representation in decision-making, and influence in the products and services that influence our lives. Let us create a future where no little girl has to ask, "How come there are no girls here?" Thank you.
stolen people from a stolen land. Jacqueline Davis, 13 years old, missing since 1969. Chelsea Kwa, 29 years old, killed in 2023. Nancy Brower, 15 years old, raped and killed in 2002. 13 years old is the age of many of our younger siblings. 15 is what many of us are now, and 29 is a number most of us wouldn't give a second thought about outliving. Out of the 5,712 cases of murdered or missing Indigenous women, only 116 were included in the Department of Justice's database. That is 5,596 people who will go unrecognized, 5,596 families left without answers, 5,596 who are being told, even in their deaths and disappearances, that they are not as valued as their white counterparts. There is an epidemic of missing and murdered Indigenous women in this country that is going unrecognized by our government, our schools, social media, and ourselves. Many of us have some sort of access to social media, and maybe once in a while a video will pop up on your For You page. But it came for a second and then it was swiped away. Some of us may post on our Instagram stories with comments saying support, or post a TikTok of a bloody hand over the mouth, which, by the way, signifies a protest symbol, not a cool makeup look. But in 2 weeks' time, the support will leave, the recognition fades, and it's deemed not worthy enough for your eyes. So I wonder how we got here. Who told us this was okay, or said who taught us to look the other way? Fifth graders sing a song about how Columbus sailed the ocean blue, but the chorus about his genocide was cut out. As young children, we are taught to idolize these people, the great founders of our nations, the fighters of our enemies. This glorification of gory crimes committed by the greats against the minority reinforces the idea that we are less than. And it may not seem like a big deal, but these ideas go into biases, prejudices that we often refuse to acknowledge. In a study, it was shown that 84% of Indigenous women have experienced violence in their lifetime, and 56% have experienced sexual violence. It is clear when me and my white friends walk down the street and men try to grab at me but wouldn't dare touch them because they know that a white cop will listen to a white woman, but a white cop will refuse to believe a brown girl. We are at an age where it's a part of our responsibility and duty to recognize our power and influence on change. I don't expect you to completely understand what I'm talking about, but I would hope that this encourages you to do your own research. Get involved in local organizations. Post about it on your Instagram stories consistently. Recognize that you and I have bias, and it is okay to admit and then try to change. 2 years ago, I was 13. I'm currently 15, and I hope I live past 29. Huatan Dios rikushka muchingashka warti bunada. Bless our stolen sisters.
Thanks, Mariana. Next up, we have Brooke Bennett.
Hi, my name is Brooke Bennett, and my speech is called Imagine This. Imagine this. Every day you see white students get more resources and opportunities than black students. Imagine this. Finding yourself lost because you don't have many African American teachers in school to talk about things you don't feel comfortable going to a white teacher about. Imagine this. Constantly getting called another black student's name or an African American name because you look like them or the name seems to fit you. These are a couple of the many things we African American students going to a predominantly white school have to deal with. Now, I don't mean going to a predominantly white school is a terrible thing. I'm able to bring diverse perspectives to the table and challenge stereotypes. Over the years, I felt that I grew in adaptability and resilience. But I've been able to stand out and make a significant impact on other students of color. But people don't realize it isn't easy going to a predominantly white school. In elementary school, I was still learning about my race. I didn't know things about my hair, my skin color, and my culture. but I was still learning. I realized I was very different from the kids in my school, let alone the kids in my class. It made me feel like I was the odd one out. I felt as if I wasn't supposed to be there. I could feel the judgment in the eyes stare at me when I would walk into the classroom. Later on, I started to learn more about my culture. Being young in elementary school, my mom would send me to school with twists or braids with beads at the end of my hair. White kids in my school just always seemed so amazed by my hair, they would want to touch it. My mom would always tell me not to let other people touch my hair, but being 8 years old, I loved the attention, so I let kids untwist and twist my hair. I don't think it hit me to the end of elementary school that the kids that they were not like me. One day I came home and all the beads that were at the ends of my hair were out, my braids were out, and a random headband was in my hair. My mom was very upset that day. From then on, I learned how I was very special and I became more interested in my culture. When I entered middle school, things started to get hard. The true colors being black and going to a predominantly white school started to affect me. I felt that I had no teacher to connect with me and a teacher that I was fully comfortable talking with. But let's not just imagine this. Let's work together to help reach out to the students of color to find resources But let's not just imagine this. Let's work together to help reach out to the students of color in a predominantly white school to find resources to help with them that they may be struggling with and are not comfortable going to a white teacher to talk about. Let's not just imagine being called an African American name or a personal pronoun. Let's get to know each other. My name is not you. My name is not her. My name is Brooke Bennett. Thank you.
Thank you, Brooke. That was great. All right, we have our final speaker. Let's welcome Lauren Zalman.
Hi everyone, my name is Lawrence Howe and my speech is titled The Second Generation Story. I want you to be honest. Raise your hand if you've ever thought about the mental health of a second generation immigrant. This is just as I expected. The lack of awareness about this topic is the exact reason why many second generation immigrants grapple with their mental health, feeling isolated and unable to seek the necessary support. As a child of 2 Chinese immigrants, mental health has always been an awkward conversation for me, especially with my parents. I can't blame them for this because they were never raised to be open about their emotions. The topic of mental health is for everyone, and I aim to innate the courage in second-generation immigrants to speak up and raise awareness among those who may not realize the silent struggles their own friends face. According to a pivotal study conducted in 2017 by psychiatrists, second-generation immigrant children and adolescents had higher rates of psychiatric disorders such as depression, PTSD, and anxiety compared to their native counterparts. Remember, children were examined in this study. Children. I know we aren't parents yet, but would you want your kid to feel this way at such a young age? Imagine how their mental health will be when they get older. Is that the future you picture for them? Now, you may have noticed that this study isn't recent. Unfortunately, this is the most up-to-date data I've been able to find, reflecting a notable lack of effort to understand this important issue. Now, moving on from statistics, I'd like to share some ideas given by second-generation immigrants in our grade. When asked if there were any pressures or expectations that came with being a second-generation immigrant, a student responded, "Since our parents put in a lot of effort and worked hard to come to the US, there may be higher expectations for their children to work hard and do well, even if it is not directly said." In fact, a lot of other students talked about how there's this pressure to live up to their parents' expectations because of all the sacrifices they have made. This weight is like being trapped in this delicate bubble created by our parents' expectations. Now, as I'm sure many of you were, I was once the victim of Russian math lessons. During one of my online classes, we were taking a low-weighted homework quiz with 5 questions at most. I got 1 question wrong. 1 question. This 1 question sent me bawling my eyes out for 10 minutes. pressure to always succeed and to always be right is engraved in my brain. Making my parents proud seems like the bare minimum because of everything they have done and sacrificed for me. But is living up to my parents' expectations worth the mental repercussions that come with it? If you're a native-born American, take a second to think about and reach out to your second-generation immigrant friends who have to deal with their mental health issues in the dark. As for all of the second-generation immigrants in the crowd, I hope you can find the strength to speak out about your mental health as it matters just as much as anyone else's, and you deserve to talk about it. As second-generation immigrants, we forge our own narratives. We have to navigate through the complex webs between our heritage and society. We are liaisons to new cultural identities. We are not our parents or just their legacies. We are second-generation immigrants. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. All right, in the second half of our program, we want to hear from all of these other folks who are up on this stage. These are our amazing class representatives, and they are going to share who they are, the title of their speech, and what they wrote about and or why they wrote about it, so you get a flavor of all of the very grave topics that people chose to reveal and speak about to their classes. And this sampling today is just a flavor of what all of you all did throughout your speech units. So let's welcome and give everybody a round of applause. Get them some love and energy.
I wrote my speech on enclothed cognition, recognizing the impact your clothes have, which is the psychology of the clothes that you wear on your attitudes towards yourself and towards others.
Hi, my name is Natalia Ferrer, and my speech was called Hidden Struggles. It was about poverty in Newton and how it's largely unseen. And the purpose of my speech was to increase awareness on poverty around us and how we can change it.
Hi everyone, my name is Samantha Shu, and my speech was about kindness, titled A Preschool Lesson. I wrote this on the alarming rate of hate incidents at our school recently and what we can do to combat this.
My name is Peter Edwards. My speech was called 40%. It was about student role models, the epidemic of children's mental health, and the effect we can have on it.
Hi everyone, my name is Elisa Slavitska. My speech was about suicide awareness and the title was Quicksand. I wrote my speech to bring awareness to those who are struggling and ask you to be the helping hand that someone may need. Help pull people out of the quicksand if they can be stuck in. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Becky Joel, and my speech is called Eating Disorders, the Silent Killer. It's about creating a world without eating disorders, as it not only has a psychological effect on our well-being, but also affects us as a community.
Hi, my name is Maya Bistoff, and my speech was called Reclaim Your Life. It was about social anxiety and how people with social anxiety need to step up and help themselves get better.
Hi, my name is Folo Gustafson, and the title of my speech is The Chosen One. My speech is on being adopted into a white family and not knowing where I really fit in this school. I want everyone to know that just because I'm raised by a white family doesn't mean that I'm less black. My message to everyone is that to never forget where you come from. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Susani Lewis, and the title of my speech is Color or the Colorist. My speech is on colorism, which is the prejudice or discrimination against individuals with darker skin, typically amongst the same ethnic or racial group. The message of my speech is how colorism should not be determining one's fate and opportunities in terms of education, dating, and jobs.
Oh, what's up? My name is Franklin, and my speech is called Before It's Too Late, and in my speech, I encourage people to always try and help others, whether or not their effort is futile.
Hello, my name is Sam Hendrickson. My speech is called 1 Year of Living. And if you spend half an hour a day being more productive, by the time you turn 50, that's another year of doing what you love. So what are you doing with those 30 minutes?
Hi, my name is Jake Strauss, and my speech is called Welcome to the Internet. My speech discusses America's political landscape, the bipolarity of it, and the tragedy of inaction.
Hello, my name is Maya Lawan, and the title of my speech is Freedom is a Practice, Not an Idea. The topic of my speech is about misplaced hate towards Arabs and Muslims, specifically pertaining to the unnecessary and excessive killing of Palestinian civilians by the Israeli military. My speech highlights the abhorrent atrocities committed against innocents. I encourage you all to speak out and educate yourselves and choose justice. Thank you.
We can give one last round of applause to all of our speakers. I have to say that this was one of the best sophomore speeches that I have seen in a while. And so really, really poignant speeches who are engaging, thoughtful, and very, very clear in your messages. And to all of you, I want to take a moment and just say, at the beginning of the school year, I said that this class has a lot of energy and a lot of spirit, and that you had an opportunity to really become leaders in the school. And I think today was a great example of how you're leading in this school. So give yourselves all a round of applause. And then lastly, thank you families, and if we can give the English department, and particularly Ms. Dilworth, a thank you and round of applause. And you're all welcome up to the third floor office, 358, for some refreshments and say congratulations to our speakers. Thank you so much. Have a great day.